Well, good evening and welcome to the HometownNewsTV.com. I'm Lori Young.
And I'm John Young. On tonight's show, we're going to be looking at some images from the Freeport Fall Fest last weekend. We're going to be covering some of the beautiful leaves that are around the area. Bill and Amy Hinman have some great photos we're going to take a look at tonight. We're going to also talk a little bit about what happened in Las Vegas this past weekend. It was kind of a really traumatic time for a lot of people, and we have a little insight because we were there while this was going on Sunday night. And then we're going to wrap up by looking at the extended forecast. A lot of information has been released recently about the 30, 60, and 90-day forecast. So we're going to take a look at it, 3 different sources, and see who's going to be right this winter. But first, we're going to look at what's in this week's paper. Lori, what do we have?
This week's Hometown News, we have Harvey McKay. Do you hear what they are saying? It's about being a good listener, which I think we can all practice on. Tom Keene, The Good Old days, he talks about farm dogs, kind of the evolution of the purpose of farm dogs years ago to now becoming part of your family. You had done an article with the Small Town Business DIY with what's up with your website.
Yeah, in this particular week's article, what we looked at was websites and what changes are going to be happening specifically with Google. If you're a small business owner, you need to be aware that Google's going to be changing how they do their whole algorithm with ranking and such when it comes to mobile devices. This is going to affect your business because in the past, your ranking might have slid down. Now, if you're not ready, they're going to completely boot you out of their search engine. So this is something new that's going to be happening in 2018, and this week's article talks about that.
Yes, and it's going to catch a lot of people off guard if you're not aware of that.
That's for sure.
This week in the Hometown News with the obituaries, we have John Hank Westerhouse, age 82 of Melrose, who died Sunday, October 1st. Services will be held at 11 a.m. Wednesday, October 11th at St. John the Baptist Catholic Church in Meyer Grove. Pete T. Schaefer, age 72 of Pequot Lakes, formerly of Long Prairie, passed away Friday, September 22nd. Services will be held at 11 a.m. on Saturday, November 18th at St. John's Catholic Church in Swanville. Robert Schenk, age 86 of Long Prairie, passed away Wednesday, September 27th in Long Prairie. His services were held last Saturday, September 30th at St. Mary's of Mount Carmel Church in Long Prairie. Services were held for Kevin Stanek, age 55 of St. Joseph, last Saturday, September 30th at the St. Columbikill Catholic Church in St. Wendell. Teresa, also known as Trey Gasperlin, age 88 of Albany, passed away Saturday, September 30th. Services will be held at 11 a.m. Saturday, October 7th at $7 Catholic Church in Albany. Services were held today, Thursday, October 5th at St. Benedict's Catholic Church in Avon for Earl Sedlowski, who had died on Wednesday. And you can read the full obituaries in this week's Hometown News. And this week we have one birth announcement, and that is Carson James Mahar, who was born on September 18th in Staples to Kristen Long and Justin Mahar. And also in this week's Hometown News is the Melrose City Minutes. Friday, October 6th, from 9 until 10 o'clock in the morning, go get your flu shot at the Village View Apartments in Gray Eagle in the community room. This Saturday is the Bertram Bean Bake, and that's going to be going from 4:30 until 8 o'clock at the Bertram Community Center. Sunday, October 8th, serving from 8:30 to 12 noon, is the Sacred Heart Council Matching Grant Breakfast, and that will be held at the Sacred Heart Church basement in Freeport. The 55 Smart Driver course is coming up on Thursday, October 12th, and that's from 12 until 4 at the Community Covenant Church in Uppsala. The 10th annual Spudfest and Silent Auction is going to be held on Sunday, October 15th from 4 until 7:30 p.m. at the Gethsemane Lutheran Church in Uppsala.
Next, we're going to be looking at some of the video from the Freeport Fall Fest. Lori, tell us a little bit more about that.
That was held last Saturday, and they do that right down Main Street. And it's kind of a fun little event. They have a lot of vendors there, a lot of kids' games and activities. They had the bouncy house. The Bob Show was there playing for some music entertainment over the noon hour. They had different food stands. Just a great time for some good family fun activities.
So as I'm looking at the people in the crowd, it looks like it might have been a little chilly on Saturday.
It was a little chilly, and actually there was a few times on and off throughout the afternoon that there was actually a little bit of rain showers that would kind of hit, but nothing that would obviously send people off the street. So they just continued on with their activities and doing the different things. There we have the Freeport Farm Center doing their hay ride. And then over at the Harvest Church, they did a corn maze, which was kind of fun, except it was really muddy. So they were hoping for some nice dry days here coming up, so that will dry that out so the kids and adults can go through and enjoy their corn maze.
So I had a few people wondering today, because the paper was about a half hour behind where it typically would be, and they were like, what was going on today? Well, this is what was going on in Sauk Center. This semi, which is taking up from basically the one side of the road to the other, is one of the long semi trucks that are used to haul some of those turbines, those wind generators that are just south of town in Sauk Center. And the gentleman who was driving this one was having a dickens of a time being able to get that turn to the left so he can head down to those turbines and such. So traffic was kind of blocked up in Sauk Center for quite a few minutes this morning. So for those of you wondering why the paper was late, I was sitting behind a truck that has a 150-foot back end. Next, we're going to kind of look at something that isn't from our area, but we were actually down in Las Vegas this past Sunday when all of a sudden, from one of our friends on Facebook, we were getting notifications that the world was kind of crashing down for a lot of folks down there.
Yeah, we had only arrived like 15 minutes prior to everything kind of going downhill.
Yeah, it kind of went crazy down there. I'm sure you all heard about that. And we're not going to go and cover the whole story, but I wanted to show you a couple of pictures and such for those who hadn't had a chance to look at it. We actually have some photos that a couple of my friends took and they sent over to us. First off, just to get an idea of what the area looked like, you've got the Mandalay Bay, and the distance between where the building was that the shots are coming from to the grounds is about a 500 meters, roughly 400 to 500 meters. It's a long distance. And the actual concert grounds were right across the street from the Luxor, which is quite a distance away because everything in Las Vegas just seems to be so much longer and farther away than you would ever imagine. It's just across the street, but it's still probably a 15 to 20 minute walk at times. This was a picture that one of my friends sent over to me. This was actually from Mandalay Bay, kind of looking over towards at a lower level, but this is kind of the view that would have been the view that would have the gunman would have used. So you can see that this is kind of the concert area. On the right there is where the stage was, and you've got the area where all the people were standing. And then this is just a little bit of a closer view of the area with all of the debris and garbage and such that people basically just dropped stuff and ran. And he got a shot of one of the windows that was busted out. Now, throughout town, on all of the different signs and such, there were different messages. Now, this was one that was the day after. So this particular one is talking about basically if you're missing friends and family, here's an 800 number to call. It's just a sad reminder for folks who were in that area that, hey, it's something horrible happened, and if you can't find, you're not alone. Here's a number. Call and see if a loved one was missing and in the hospital. And Lori, this is something when you and I went and walked a little bit, and we took this picture. This is something that I took myself because we've walked Vegas dozens of times, but this was unusual because you don't see a police presence like this. No,
and of course with having them grouped like every half block.
Yeah.
And they were just there to have their presence. They weren't. They were kind of mingling amongst themselves, but they just had their presence there. And I think they were trying to give that feeling that it's secure, that it's okay for people to be out and about, that the police were there to try to make it more comforting, I think, to the people.
I definitely think so. There were very few spots on the strip that a person would be able to go and not see, whether looking left or looking right, to be able to see some sign of a uniformed presence there, which was unusual. You typically might see one officer here, one officer there, which actually today as I was driving around, I actually saw quite a few officers, as you typically do during the day. But in Vegas, we were seeing them in groups of 5 and 6, 4, 5, and 6. Today, seeing officers by themselves, it's like, wow, that's kind of actually semi-unusual from what we were used to in Las Vegas the last few days. But again, they were all along the strip. You couldn't really, if you couldn't see one in front of you, you'd probably turn around and there was, a group right behind you. Just a lot of police presence throughout the city. And it kind of made it a more subdued, I think, strip area. People were still going through, having a good time, but it was just kind of notched down just a little bit.
Yeah. And John, last evening, obviously, we flew back and our flight was only half full. And from the ticketing counter to the flight attendants, they were saying that there was a lot of no-shows. And that's just kind of scary because that means there was quite a few people probably from Minnesota or in the upper Midwest that was going to be coming back last night that either they are stuck back because of maybe part of the tragedy that happened on Sunday night.
Yeah, you don't know if they're in a hospital or worse, or if they're staying with a friend who was injured. I mean, there's just so many, when you have 500 people injured, there's just so many possibilities. But yeah, it was kind of when the flight attendant comes over and says, yeah, we're trying to get everything, the numbers all evened out because we have so many no-shows. And you'd never hear about that happening in modern plane or modern flying. But we did last night.
And it wasn't cancellations. It was that they didn't show up. So that was just kind of weird, and it was probably one of the few times that when we've had to go and put luggage up in the overhead storage compartments that our luggage was the only one in our whole bin, and that just shows you how thin the flight was.
Yeah, I mean, there have been times where each person could have their own row. I mean, as far as like a group of 3 seats last night, we could have had our own the whole aisle. We could have had all 6 seats to ourselves because there just were so few people on that flight.
Yeah. Now, John, we've had a lot of rainfall over the week. Actually, I think it probably started last Sunday and just kind of continued on throughout the week. And what is the weather showing for us?
Well, we've got a couple of pictures here we'll take a look at quickly. This is what you're going to be seeing around the area, unfortunately, is a lot of areas, especially low-lying areas, that are flooded. A lot of the farmers are wanting to get out in the field and do some different things. I mean, I think we just heard one of our neighbor farmers here going by with a tractor, and he's probably digging up a lot of mud here at the office. But there's a lot of water standing, and harvest is going to be delayed because of that. So once it's dry, gang, keep an eye out, because the farmers are going to be running as fast as they can, because we're showing some signs of more rain. It's going to be a wet fall, and that's not a really good thing now, because it's time for the rain to stop to get those crops in. Then it can start raining a little bit more and get that water table built up for winter.
There was a combine that I had seen on the way home from Lawn Prairie this evening, and they were cutting through in just a lot of mud.
Running through a lot of mud. And the way it looks is that this weekend we're going to have probably, most likely, just kind of a partly cloudy weekend, a little bit of rain coming through tomorrow on Friday, but otherwise it's going to be a cool, kind of a dreary weekend, maybe a touch of sun here and there, but kind of a depressing weekend. Maybe time to do a few things inside and hoping for more sun as the week progresses next week.
So keep your umbrellas handy.
But this past week, they started talking about the 30 and 60 and 90 day forecast. And these, truthfully, if you do any studying of meteorology, anything after 10 days is a complete guess, which is always so funny because you've got the Farmer's Almanac that the older folks just say, this is so accurate. For those of you wondering, the Farmer's Almanac, what it does is it basically goes through and gives you averages. It looks at averages and projects, it'll be, usually the average is about 35, it's probably going to be 33. Roll the dice, okay, and then add or subtract, okay, 2 plus, it's going to be 37 degrees. That's pretty much what the Farmer's Almanac is going to do. They're looking at the averages. Now, with that being said, we have some legitimate news sources for weather that are doing a very similar thing this particular year. So let's take a look at some of the 30, 60, and 90-day forecasts so we can find out what our winter is going to be like in the upper Midwest. So first we're going to look at a map from the Weather Channel. Now, the Weather Channel for the month of October is predicting that through the upper Midwest we're going to have above average temperatures. And we're just going to be looking at temperatures for the first few here. So it's going to be kind of a nice October according to the Weather Channel. We get into November. Now, November is going to be actually, and I've seen this on a couple of different prediction maps, that November is actually supposed to be a very warm month in the upper Midwest. And this is a model that's, again, over 10 days out, so it's really not, could be completely inaccurate, but a lot of them are saying because of that weather system and the way the oceans and such are warming and cooling, that we're probably going to have a really mild November. Now here's where some of the models kind of differ. So when we get to December, in December some are predicting that we're going to have kind of that maybe about average or just a little bit above, and then some are predicting that we're going to be amazingly lower than average in our temperatures. And right now the Weather Channel is going that direction with their prediction forecast here, saying that in the upper Midwest we are going to be below average, maybe slightly below, but we're going to be cold. I've heard some saying that we might get into the middle of December and we might have some sub-zero temperatures rolling through at that time. So another resource that a lot of people use on the internet is AccuWeather. And I wanted to go to AccuWeather and see what they were going to be predicting for the whole winter of 2017-18. And what AccuWeather is really pointing to is that later December and throughout January, just this incredible cold blast that's supposed to be coming through. They're not predicting a lot of snow for the winter, but they're talking about a cold, dry, kind of a miserable, windy winter is what they're thinking we're going to be having here in the upper Midwest. And of course, it wouldn't be a forecast without our friends here at the Farmer's Almanac. So we look at the Farmer's Almanac and see what they're saying for winter of 2017 to 2018. They're saying the mid and upper part of Minnesota is going to have kind of a mild and dry winter, and yet in the lower part we're going to have more of a kind of a snowy. And again, as you look at the different maps, they're all over the board on what they're predicting, because after 10 days, none of the maps are really much more than just a guess.
John, I had heard that there was a tornado that went through the Pillsbury area. Is that correct?
There were actually, I believe that storm had either 5 or 6 tornadoes. We have that on our Facebook page, and we'll have the image here in just a second. But there were a variety of tornadoes. Now, they were between an EF0 and an EF1, which basically is telling you how fast the wind was and how much damage that they caused. But there were 5 or 6 that rolled through between Belgrade and down in that vicinity, coming up here through. Melrose, ironically, was not a tornado. They did not have any tornadic activity there. But then when you got into Long Lake and Pillsbury, there was another tornado that worked its way through. And we've got a really cool picture here I wanted to share with you. This was a look at the north end of Pillsbury Lake with the damage on the north end of the lake. But it was taken from a boat, and you can see all of the incredible damage that was done with this now tornado that hit us here just about a week and a half ago.
Which kind of fits what I was told when I was walking down the street, when I had talked with a couple of the people, is that they heard the freight trains and then the snapping of the trees and such, and they were pretty certain that it was a tornado because it fit all these sounds that they've been told that a tornado would have.
Yeah, and there was some twisting and things that went on. It actually was kind of surprised me. It took as long as it did for the Weather Service to actually classify it as a tornado, because there were signs, but that's their job. They come through and they put a label on it, and then once the label's on it, then we can talk about it.
And now we're going to share with you some of the photos that Bill and Amy Himman in the Grey Eagle area has shared with us.
The fall colors are really starting to come on around the area. If you are wanting to go out and check those out, you need to do that here in the next week to 10 days, because they're going to be at peak here shortly. And Bill and Amy have got some beautiful pictures. Well, that's our show for today. Thank you for watching once again. If you happen to see anything that's going on around the area, we've got a great spot on our website. You can go to htnewstv.com, and from there you can upload images or video with your cell phone. You just go to that with your browser, type that in, go there, and you'll see a spot where you can go and click to grab a photo from your phone and upload that right to us. And then we can include that in a show, just like Bill and Amy did with all those beautiful fall color photos. So thank you, Bill and Amy, for sending those photos over. Once again, thank you for watching. I'm John Young.
And I'm Laura Young.
From Hometown News TV.
Good night.